Hey everyone, my name is Abby Terrell, and I'm in the clinical methods class. And the therapy tactic that I decided to discuss in my slides is functional play. I'm currently an undergrad to be a speech and language pathologist, so functional play is something that I observe in pretty much every session that I watch. It's a very versatile form of therapy, so let's just get right into it. So, what is functional play? Just a basic definition is when toys, objects, or games, or quite literally anything that can be played with, are used with an intended purpose to target developmental aspects and skills during therapy. And another name for functional play is often called play-based therapy. So basically, it's using toys to integrate sort of developmental therapy into the actual playing of the toys and the games. It is an easier and more approachable form of therapy for children, especially those with cognitive impairments. We'll talk about this a little bit more in detail in a later slide, but children who have cognitive impairments, it's very difficult for them to learn in the typical like teacher-student setting. So functional play is a very good form of therapy to help like integrate the practicing of those, language or articulation skills that they might need to be practicing. So why is functional play important? I have three reasons here. The first is that it reduces anxiety and improves emotional regulation by providing structured and meaningful activities that give children a sense of control. This kind of goes back to what I was saying in the previous slide about children with cognitive impairments not learning very well in a typical learning environment. And that's usually because they don't like being in environments or situations where they lack control. They like to be able to lead or to understand what's going on. So functional play gives the children, most of the time, it gives the children the authority sort of in the activity. And so the SLP will usually follow what the child's doing and then integrate the actual therapy needed through the play that the child is choosing. Next, children typically learn better through constructive interactions and more easily understand roles and routines, as well as tangibles and what's around them. And that is in functional play. And that is a very common thing known that, when children are growing up from like birth to like 4 or 5 years, like they're learning how to interact in the world around them by watching other people, like watching their parents, watching their teachers, watching older people in their life do certain things. So functional play is a great way for them to learn because they watch through actions. They don't necessarily learn as well through word of mouth. And lastly, a very broad and almost limitless form of therapy, making it beneficial to any form of speech therapy. So, like I said in the beginning, there's little to no rules with functional play. You can the therapist can sort of take it in any direction that they want. They can pick any game, any toy that helps target what the child needs to be in therapy for. So it is very broad and very useful for all forms of language therapy, like language articulation or even voice. So there's two types of play, like functional play, that we often see. It's structured and unstructured. And structured is more adult guided. There's a very specific skill that is needing to be targeted. So it involves a little bit more rules and outlines with the expectations of play. So there's a little bit more regulations, and the child doesn't necessarily have as much freedom to do what they want with the toys of the game. And so an example of this might be a puzzle or a turn-taking game. One that I often see is like Candyland or like Pop the Pig for a turn-taking game, and problem-solving activities. So there's a little bit more regulations and structure, hence why it's called structured play, to the actual therapy. And unstructured play is very much child-led. It allows for more freedom to explore and create playful scenarios with the toys, and it pushes for the child to initiate creativity and independence and use their emotions. So in unstructured play, the SLP or the clinician in whatever field might be using it is following the child's lead. Some examples I have here is a kitchen set or a dollhouse. One that I often see in the clinic that I observe at is like a barn with a bunch of farm animal toys, and the kids will be running around with the toys or like making the toys jump or making noises, and the SLP is then, using that as a way to emphasize verbs and actions with what the child's making the toy do, or emphasizing animal noises or animal names to help them with identifying nouns. So there's really no like rules or regulations to what is expected to get out of the play. It's just free reign for the child. So functional play in different areas of speech. With language, it usually is to target social skills, understanding patterns and routines, turn taking, and cooperative play. It integrates like daily skills into play rather than teaching the child how to do them directly. So we're not sitting here like, oh, you need to say a 3-word utterance like this, make the car go fast. Like, no, it's more like playing with cars, and the SOP is modeling go car or car go fast. It's not just like sitting there and directly teaching the child how to do it. Articulation, this one's a bit more different. There's usually 2 options. There's either one, the teaching of speech comes in between the rounds of play. So like maybe the child wants to play with cars again. Let's just stick with the car example. The kids will play with the cars for 2 minutes, and then we'll stop, and the SOP will do speech for 2 minutes, like practicing their L sounds or whatever sound that the child needs to be targeting. But then the other option for articulation is the game where the SOP chooses a game that requires a certain utterance to be said that targets one of the sounds. Like one I mentioned earlier, Pop the Pig is a really popular one. Like if a child needs to be practicing like their double lip sounds or like their p sound, like Pop the Pig, that's often like what they'll do. They'll choose a game that requires a child to speak a certain sound. And then voice is very similar to Artic. This is a very uncommon therapy. I've rarely ever watched a voice session, but usually play becomes in between rounds of therapy, almost like an incentive or a reward, because it's kind of hard to integrate play directly into voice. So, and then this last slide, I just kind of included some specific examples that I've watched. I go to Little Peach Pediatric Therapy. So I mentioned earlier the barn animal play set's very popular. Car toys, kitchen play set, lock and key toy with surprises inside. This is like a box that has a bunch of like cages and color matching keys, and the kids will like use the keys to unlock the cages and like see what's inside. Sometimes it's like a toy dog or like a ball, and so that's a really good one for like emphasizing like color matching. That one really emphasizes like creative play and like letting the child lead what they want to do with the toy that they find inside. Another one's hide and seek with spatial awareness words. This one's really good. The SOP like had a stuffed animal, and they were like, okay, child, hide this stuffed animal under the table, and the child would go hide it under. Okay, now hide it on top of the desk. So spatial awareness words is a very common thing for children to be in therapy for with early intervention language. So that's a really popular functional play tactic. And the last one is a shaped toy puzzle. That one's a little bit more structured, where like you put the star in the star hole or put the circle in the circle hole. Really good way to emphasize problem solving and shapes and identifying what shape matches another shape. So like category recognizing. So yeah, that is the last slide. This is just a reference list that I got a few things from. So thank you for watching.